Hello, children. The first story in your English textbook, Moments, is The Lost Child. This story is written by Mulk Raj Anand, who is an Indian author, and the story is about a child who is lost in a village fair. The introduction of the story goes like this. A child goes to a fair with his parents. He is happy and excited and wants the sweets and toys displayed there. But his parents don't buy them for him. Why then does he refuse when someone else offers them to him? This is the introduction. I have given a note about the central idea of this story. It is here on the screen, you can see. I am reading it and you will understand it. The central idea or theme of this story is like this. Uh, it is the human nature that we aren't always conscious of our valuable possessions. That means whatever we have, we don't value them much, or we are just oblivious or forgetful about them. It is the routine thing, it is in our nature, it is human nature. It becomes a routine for us to have them subconsciously. But when we find that we are suddenly deprived of them, we realize the importance of having them. Suppose we lose something all of a sudden, then only we realize its importance. Your near and dear, who is always with you, it is your routine. You are mixed up with him, and you never think of losing him. But suddenly, if you lost, he's lost, or you lose him somehow, then you feel the vacuum. You feel the vacuum of his absence can never be fulfilled, isn't it? And that's true because it is human nature. As long as you are with somebody, or as long as you possess something, you don't feel like realizing its importance. It's quite natural. And so is the case of bond of love between the child and his parents in this story. He is lost in a village fair, but he thinks that he has lost his parents and wants them back desperately, as he considers them far more valuable than anything else that is offered to him. When the child is lost in the fair, earlier in the fair, he was lured by a number of things that we'll see in the details of this story. But when he loses his parents, rather the child is lost, but he thinks that his parents are not there with him. So he wants his parents only. He doesn't want anything which he wanted earlier. So this story is very interesting but meaningful story. The first paragraph of the story goes like this. It was the festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys, alleys means small lanes in the villages and towns, okay? This is the scene of the village in this story. Lanes and alleys emerged a gaily clad humanity. Gaily means very happily, colorfully. Clad means clothed. Humanity means human beings, people. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. So some were going to see the fair, to watch the fair on the horsebacks, some on the bullock cart. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over with life and laughter. So the little boy's father and his mother were taking him to see the village fair and enjoy it. And the child was brimming with life and energy. He was full of energy and enthusiasm to go and see the village fair. You can see in the picture the child with his parents. Okay. Then the author has described how the child is fascinated or attracted by the things which he sees on the way. Come, child, come, called his parents as he lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. So, on the way to the fair, both the sides, the toy shops were lined up, and the child wanted the toys. So, he was just fascinated, attracted by those beautiful toys. So, he halts there for a while, and the parents call him. Okay, and he hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call. Okay, but still his eyes were lingering on the receding toys, the toys which were left behind while they were walking forward. Okay, and then the child goes and meets his parents. They had stopped midway to for the child to join them. Okay, and he couldn't suppress his desire, and he knew that in the eyes of his parents there is the same old cold heartless stare of refusal in their eyes. That refusal is there. Even if you ask his parents for the toys, they won't provide him. It is the nature of certain parents that they do not provide all the things to their children. So is the case with this child. I want that toy, he pleaded. His father got angry. He showed his red eyes to him like a tyrant. Tyrant means one who is absolute. Beyond him, he's the rule unto himself. Tyrant. He's absolute. He doesn't obey the others. All should obey him. Tyrant kings, like that. So his father was tyrant. But he was a little bit angry with the child when he asks for that toy. But his mother was kind-hearted lady, soft-hearted. She melted by the free spirit of the day, and she was very tender, and gives the finger to her child and says, "Look, child, what is before you?" That means she wants to distract the attention of the child. Okay. Then, as they were walking on a footpath through the mustard fields, so it was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold, as it swept across miles and miles of even land. So there was a footpath through the fields of mustard, and it was flowering season of the mustard, and they were looking golden or yellowish color flowers. There were golden and yellowish color flowers in the mustard fields. Okay, and now in the following paragraph, in following few paragraphs, the author has described how the child's attention is distracted by anything, even the insects, the birds, and the other things which he comes across while moving through that field of mustard on the footpath. So he looks at a group of dragonflies. They were bustling about, okay, and they had their gaudy purple wings, okay, and there were black bees, there were butterflies, and they were in search of the flowers to extract the nectar. Okay, the child follows all these insects, dragonflies, black bee, butterflies. Okay, and he wants to catch them. But as soon as he goes or tries to catch, they flutter and flap their wings and they fly away. Then his mother gave a cautionary call. Come, child, come on to the footpath, because he had left the footpath and he had entered into the mustard field to catch these insects which we have seen just now: dragonflies, black bee, butterflies, etc. Okay. Then when his mother calls him, he runs towards his parents, gaily means happily, and walks abreast, that means side by side. He walks with them side by side for a while. Okay. But soon he is left behind, attracted by little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. Teeming out means coming out in large number from the hiding places. Who are coming out? The little insects and worms. It was a very pleasant sunshine in the morning, and the worms were coming out from their hiding places. So child was again left behind. He wanted to see those. These all these things are center of attraction, center of gravity for the child. These all things are the new for a growing child. Parents have seen several times in their life, but the child has not. That's why he is attracted towards these things naturally. Then by this time his parents, his mother and father, had gone beyond, and there was a well. There was a well beside the footpath. So they had gone there, and they were sitting there, and they were waiting for the child to come. And the parents called the child from there. There was a shade of a grove. Grove means a group of trees. Okay. And there was a well just nearby. So at the well, the parents were sitting and they called him. So he goes and joins the parents again. Okay. As he goes there, a shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. As he goes near to his parents, who were in the grove. Grove means a group of trees, flowering trees, isn't it? And there were the leaves of the trees. Okay, so the petals of the uh, flowers, because see, a shower of young flowers fell upon the child. Young flowers, isn't it? These are the petals of the flowers which fell on his head. So he just collects them in his hand. Okay. But suddenly his attention is again distracted. One bird, dove. It is a bird of a pigeon family. It was cooing in a nearby tree. So he just is attracted. He's just attracted by the cooing sound of the dove, and he shouts, the dove, and he runs to see the dove, and the petals drop down from his hands. Then the child is again lost in the fields, and he goes. There is a tree around him. The child is moving and trying to see the dove. Come, child, come. They called to the child, who had now gone running in the wild capers. Capers means I have given the meaning: playful, leap or hop, jumping playfully. Just child run as if they are dancing and playfully running like that. So playfully they leap, they jump and hop, and they move forward in the same way the child was doing. This child is doing. So he had gone running in very wild, very vigorous capers round the banyan tree, and gathering him, they took the narrow, winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard fields. So the child has gone to the banyan tree to watch the cooing dove. The mother again calls him, and the child joins his parents. Now they take another footpath that also is through the mustard fields. Okay, so in the first part of the story, we have seen that what all are the things which the child sees while he is going with his parents to the village fair. Okay, and then the next paragraph, as they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs. Throngs means crowds of people. Okay, converging to the whirlpool of the fair. That means whirlpool, something that is which is moving round and round. In the water, there is whirlpool like that. People are moving round and round like whirlpool in the village fair. He saw them, and at the same time, he felt repelled. Repelled means some sort of disgust, dislike for that crowd, and he was fascinated, attracted by something new, which he might see in the village fair. So repulsion and fascination, both the things are there on the mind of the child. Okay, and there was some sort of confusion because of the crowds of the people in that mela or village fair. People we call it mela in Hindi. Okay, now here you will see, my dear children, I have given the numbers in the margin, isn't it? This one, you see here, one, you can see two. These numbers are for the things which the child sees on his way to the village fair and in the village fair. So, a sweet meat, so the first hawker or the first stall in the village fair which the child sees is a sweet meat seller, means a sweet seller. Okay, meat means not the meat or flesh of any animal. It's not the meat or flesh of any animal, but sweet meat means the sweets. A sweet meat seller hawked. Hawk means one who shouts for selling the things. Gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi at the corner of the entrance. Now they have reached to the entrance gate of the village fair. So it was the first shop. Earlier, whatever he had seen in the previous paragraphs, you have seen that is on the way to the village fair. Now it is the entrance of the village fair. Okay, and there was a sweet shop, and these things, gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi, and other sweets were displayed there. Many colored sweets were there, decorated with leaves of silver and gold. Leaves of silver and gold means in Hindi you call it chandi or sone ka work. Work in Hindi is called. That is this very, very thin leaf of silver and gold, which is uh, with which the sweets are decorated. Okay, and the child's mouth is watered, and barfi was his favorite. So he says, I want that barfi. He slowly murmured, slowly, because he knew the nature of his father. He was an angry man, and he won't allow him to buy anything in the village fair. Whatever, if at all he buys something for the child, it will be according to his wish, not according to the child's wish. This is what the child thinks, isn't it? So he says, I want that barfi. He slowly murmured. But he half knew, as he begged, that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So, without waiting for an answer, he moved on. So, the first thing the child thought, if he asks for the sweets, his parents would say, you are greedy for the sweets, and they won't at all buy the sweets for him. So, without waiting for an answer, he moves on. Then in the next paragraph, following paragraph, I have given this number 2 here. The second thing, shop, second shop or the stall in the village fair. A flower seller, a flower seller hogged a garland of gulmohar, a garland of gulmohar. So he wanted the garland of gulmohar. The child wanted it. So again he half murmured, I want that garland. But again, he thinks the parents are not going to buy that garland for him. They would say it is very cheap and you shouldn't buy that garland. So, again, without waiting for an answer, he moves on. The child moves on without waiting for an answer. So, this is the second shop. Sweet shop you have seen, and the second one was the garland shop or the flower shop. Okay, then the third one, I have given the number here, there you can see this third one. The third stall was that of balloons, isn't it? A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. On the pole, they fix the balloons. They are tied with thin thread and they are hanging and they are just blowing and they are selling them to the children, isn't it? The same scene is here, you see. Balloons flying from the pole he saw. And he was very much attracted by the rainbow glory of their silk colors. Glory here is beauty or honor. In this sense, this is used. There is a meaning. So, rainbow glory means they looked colorful like the rainbow. There are 7 colors in the rainbow, you know it. And they were very silken colors and silken in looks. So, he wanted the balloons. But he doesn't dare to ask his parents. He thinks they would say he was too old to play with such toys. He shouldn't play with the balloons now. He's a grown child. They will say like this. He thinks, he just presumes what his parents' reply would be. Okay. So he walked on further. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Then the fourth shop. It is not a shop, actually, a snake charmer. Roadside snake charmers in the village fairs or in the small towns. Sometimes they sit and they are displaying the snakes and this mongoose, etc. So it was a snake charmer who was standing there and playing a flute. And one snake was there, he was coiled in a basket. The child was fascinated. He halts there, he looks at the snake charmer and he wants to see how he shows the game, that show of the snake dancing and all. Okay. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music. Forbidden means they don't. Forbidden means they have not allowed. They have stopped him from doing that. You don't allow somebody to do something, or you stop somebody from doing something. That means you forbid him. Okay. So the parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music. Coarse means not a very refined quality of music. Okay. He thinks the parents would not allow. They have not allowed him to listen to such a coarse or unrefined music. So he proceeds further. He goes farther. The child goes farther beyond that snake charmer's place. Okay. So this was the fourth thing which he has seen, the snake charmer. Well, he goes farther, and then there was a roundabout. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children carried away in a whirling motion. Whirling means moving round and round. There are the horses, the elephants, and the camels and the other animals on that roundabout. On their back, the children mount and they are just whirled round the hub. That is the scene in the village fair. and they were shrieking and they were crying. They were in dizzy laughter. Dizzy means very whirling. Dizzy means uh, swooning, you can say, something dizzying heights. Something is moving round and round. You feel like that. So dizzy laughter means here you can say very wild laughter. They all were in a very hilarious mood. So the child watches them intently, very keenly. Very keenly he watches them and makes a very bold request this time. Earlier he had been just murmuring that I want this and that in the earlier shops we have seen. But now very boldly, very loudly he says, I want to go on the roundabout. Please, father, please, mother. He pleads to his parents, thinking that they would allow him. Then, my dear boys and girls, what happens? When he asks permission to go on the roundabout, there was no reply. And he turned to look at his parents. They were not there. There was no sign of them all around. Anywhere they were not seen. So the child thinks that he has lost his parents. He has been deprived of the love and affection of his parents. Even if the father was angry, the child naturally feels that he loves him. There is some love in the corner of his heart. So, as soon as he finds that he has lost his parents, a full deep cry rose within his dry throat. And with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear, Mother, Father. Okay. He ran to one side first and then to the other side, hither and thither in all directions, searching his mother and father, and just shouting at the top of his voice, Mother, Father. He wailed, cried, cried loudly. He wailed. His yellow turban came untied, and his clothes became muddy while he's running and searching his parents. Okay, then he runs here and there for a while, having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while. He stood defeated. He was tired, and he feels that he is defeated. It is difficult for him to get his parents back. His cries suppressed into sobs. Now he starts sobbing. His cries were suppressed and he starts sobbing. In Hindi, you call it siskiyan bharna, like that. Okay. And at little distances, on the green grass, he could see there were men and women. They were talking. In the village fair is held in the open ground. There's grass. So on the soft grass, the men and women were talking. They were laughing and talking and enjoying. Many people he saw there. Okay. Well, then he ran quickly again, this time to a shrine. Shrine means a temple. In the temple, the place of deity is called a shrine. Okay. So there was a shrine nearby, a temple was there, and the idol of deity was there, village deity. So he runs towards that, thinking that he might find his parents there. But there he goes and he finds that people were crowding. There were crowds of people. Okay. So, see, his little sob lingering mother and father while he is searching his parents among the crowd of the people at the temple. He is sobbing, mother, father, mother, father. And there were people. They were just jostling, pushing, and pulling the others, and they were making way in that crowd. And heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. They were there. and he was a small child. How could he move among them? It was difficult for him to wade through that crowd. So the poor child struggled. Okay, he was knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. Brutal means savage movements, very savage, strong, savage movements. He was just knocked down and pushed to and fro. And now he is very much terrified and shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, "Father, mother." And as he was shrieking, he was saved from being crushed under the feet of the people, feet of the crowd, which had gathered at the temple gate. So, a stranger, a kind man, saw the child and he lifted the child in his arms. Okay, a man in the surging crowd heard his cry and, stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. He was a small child. Okay, so he lifts him in his arm. He was a baby, he was a small child. It becomes clear here, you see. How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you? Whose baby are you? He was a small child, that's why he was able to hold him in his arms. But the child just weeps and doesn't tell anything. He just says, "I want my mother, I want my father." Now, up to here, this is the first part, we can say. The shops which he visits one by one. And from here, this number you can see I have given here, number 5. Okay. The situation is reversed by the author. The shops or the stalls which the child has visited earlier, and he was fascinated by the things which were sold there. He was fascinated earlier. He was fascinated earlier, and he wanted them. Now that stranger, that kind elderly man, takes the child to the same places and offers the same things which the child very desperately wanted earlier. But this time, as the child has lost his parents, he doesn't want anything else in the world, but he wants only his mother and father. See how the priority of a child, you can say the human priority also in the same manner, how the priority of a child undergoes a change. Earlier, as long as he was his parents, he felt secure. Now there is a sense of insecurity in the mind of the child. That's why when this kind elderly man, that stranger, he's a stranger, that man is a stranger, an unknown man. He takes that child to the various places and offers him that you have this and that. He says, "No, I don't want anything. I just want my mother and father." The man tried, that you can see this number 5 I have given here. 5, 4, 1, 3, 2, 1. It will go like this. The reverse situation in the second part of the story, as I have told just now. The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. "And will you have a ride on the horse?" he gently asked. And the child refused. He says, "No, I don't want a round on any horse or anything else. I want my mother, I want my father." He goes on shouting. Okay, now you see the picture is given of the crying child crying, and he's the elderly man, okay, who helps the child. Then here in the margin you can see I have given this number 4. The man, that kind elderly man, takes the child to the snake charmer. Earlier the child was charmed by the snake charmer's flute music, and he wanted to see it. And he says, "Listen to that nice music, child." Okay, the child doesn't listen to that music. He shuts his ears with his fingers and shouts in a very high strain, double pitched strain, I want my mother, I want my father. Well, so snake charmer also couldn't attract him this time. Then the man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. He will be quietened, he will be calmed. Okay, he will be pacified and comforted, he thinks. Okay. Would you like the rainbow colored balloon? The child refuses to have them. He just sobs and says, I want my mother, I want my father. So this was the third place in the reverse situation. Balloon shop. There he takes, the elderly man takes him. And then the man takes him to the flower seller and says, look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck? Earlier the child wanted the garland to put around his neck. Very desperately he wanted the garland. But now, what the child replies, the child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated, means stressed again, said with emphasis again, I want my mother, I want my father. I don't want the either the flowers or the garlands. Well, then here I have given this number 1, my dear children. You can see, thinking to humor his disconsolate, means inconsolable, one who can't be comforted at all. He wanted to comfort the child, he wanted to ease the child. Who? That man. He wanted to comfort the child. So, thinking to humor his disconsolate charge, the child was in his charge and with him. That's why he's his charge. The child was under his charge now, not under the charge of that elderly stranger. By a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? Earlier you have seen that the child wanted barfi and he wanted to have it, but his parents didn't provide even barfi to the child. So now the stranger asks him, that elderly man, elderly gentleman asks him. That man asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. And there, Mulk Raj Anand, the author, has ended this story. Now he has left for you to think whether the child could finally get his parents or not. So, this is the hypothetical question, a thought-provoking question, and on the basis of your imagination, you can write the correct answer. But you should be able to justify it. Now let us assess the situation. See, as that stranger, that elderly gentleman, was taking the child from place to place in the village fair, somehow on the way he might have got his parents, and the parents also, having realized that they lost their child, they also might be searching the child here and there in the fair. And on the way, the parents and that elderly man with the child might have met, and the man might have handed over the child to the parents. This is one situation. Okay, this is one possibility. In this way, the child finally goes to the parents. Another possibility is that in the village fair, there is arrangement of police. Okay, there are the police booths, and there are the loudspeakers and mics. The elderly gentleman would have moved here and there in search of the parents, and he might not have got the parents anywhere. So he finally would have taken the child to the police booth, and the announcement might have been made in the village fair to collect the child who is lost in the fair from the police booth. The address of that police booth might have been given in the announcement, and the parents might have reached there and collected the child. This is another possibility. So it depends how logically you are able to explain and how logically you are able to establish what you want to say, and both the answers would be marked correct. Okay, so in this way, the Mulk Raj Anand has finally left it to your consideration whether the child finally meets his parents, or he doesn't find his parents at all, and he is sent to the orphanage. That is the third likelihood, but that is the remotest likelihood, and that is not possible because the village fairs are the small fairs, and there it is not very difficult. It's not a very big city, so it is not very difficult to locate the people in the village fairs. It is not difficult even today, and it was not difficult in the earlier times also. Okay, so this is the analysis of such a situation which we can imagine after the end of this story. So there the story ends, my dear boys and girls. It's a very meaningful story, and there are questions in the end of the story. You attempt them. In case of any difficulty, you can just contact me and ask me any question that you want to ask. Okay, so that's all for today. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.